Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench.
Hello, welcome back to Fighting on Film. Now this week, it's our Patreon pick episode. Every week, we allow our Patreons to pick a film for us, and there's always a choice of 4. This month, it was, well, if you're listening, you probably read the title. It's Greyhound this week, but we had Hot Shots Part 2. We had, Steel Bayonets, and Matt chose a really weird B movie. I can't remember the name of it
now. Battle at the Centre of the Earth.
Centre of the Earth. Yeah, it was like a weird Cold War sort of fever film, wasn't it?
Yeah. It looks amazing. I haven't even watched it yet. I just thought I'd throw it in there. I saw that someone mentioned it on Twitter, and I looked at the trailer and I was like, wow, this looks insane. This is going on this month's. Yeah. It's fighting Chinese people that have dug towards America to invade, apparently. It's insane.
Crazy stuff.
And, we were accused jokingly of this being a bit of a fix in aid of Greyhound. And I can categorically tell you that I wanted to cover every single one of the films that we put up this week.
Yeah, we don't put up anything hoping another thing will win.
Well, I did. I mean, I always I famously put up Hornblower like 6 times.
Yeah, I know, but that became a joke, didn't it? But no, Greyhound won fair and square. And before we begin, we just want to thank everyone again, and because this week we have broken into the top 10 at the time of recording. We've broken into the top 10 UK film review podcasts on Apple Pods. So we are over the moon. Like, thank you so much.
It's insane. Who could have predicted that? I couldn't. Like, we're up there top, like, we were like number 6 the other day. I was this is insane.
We're in touching distance of Mark Kermode. Amazing. Yeah.
It's just a matter of time, Rob, before we topple them.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh no,
Britain's most niche war movie podcast.
Yeah. No, so thank you so much to everyone who listens, shares, follows.
Thank you.
It means so much. And another bit of news. Me and Matt will be. It's not a Fighting on Film event, but we are going to be at the National Army Museum in July in London for Rich Fisher. You might know him on Twitter as Vickers MG. He's having a day where they're celebrating 100 years of the disbandment of the Machine Gun Corps, and Matt's doing a talk on
indirect fire. So there's a few events on. Just I might as well throw all of these out because Rich will be really pleased that we did. On the 3rd of July, which is this coming weekend, we will be at Bisley doing a 16-gun full company of Vickers machine guns live firing.
It's going to be insane.
As a demonstration. There'll be video of that if you can't make it, but it is free to the public. And then, as Rob said, there's going to be a couple of events in London at the National Army Museum commemorating the disbandment of the Corps in 1922. There's going to be lots of talks, lots of displays. The museum is there to look around as well. It's going to be a really nice little commemoration of a largely forgotten Corps.
So it's going to be great. I think I'm there as well. I'm showing some of my documentaries that I made, hopefully. And then the following weekend, I think we've probably mentioned it before, but it's the We Have Ways podcast festival. And we're there again doing our quiz. So it's a jam-packed month, but have no fears. The show will be coming to you every week anyway. So without further ado,
let's talk about the best film that Tom Hanks has ever made.
Oh, contentious one there, Matt. Some people may disagree there.
I mean, Tom's got such a back catalogue.
God, I know, right? It seems like he's just got another never-ending stream of good films to his name. So I think with this week, talking about Tom Hanks, do you want to start with cast, Matt?
Let's. So it's a concise cast. You've got a few main players, and then you have the bridge crew, which pop in and out, various different people. So you've got Tom Hanks, who plays Commander Ennis Krause, the commander of the ship codenamed Greyhound, the titular
USS Keeling in the movie.
Yeah, the Keeling. Then we've got Stephen Graham, who is XO, Lieutenant Commander Charlie Cole, and listeners will remember him from Jenny's End.
Who's
also in Tinker Tailor Parade's End, Public Enemies, Band of Brothers, and the 2000s
Snatch, Boardwalk Empire, loads.
Yeah, well, you know, the
Yeah.
list goes on. But I was thinking of Occupation from 2009, I think it is.
Yes, that's
The
fantastic.
BBC
that
film
one.
about Basra.
Mm.
Then we got Rob Morgan as George Cleveland, who is a mess attendant, and he's currently being criminally underused in Stranger Things. He was in Godless and Mudbound, but he's great in this. But as I said, he's kind of underused in Stranger Things, where he's like the deputy.
Right. Yeah.
Just stands there and has a few good lines now and then.
He was in Don't Look Up recently. I liked him in that.
Yeah. He's been in a lot of good stuff, actually. Elisabeth Shue plays Evelyn Frechette, who is Ernest's love interest. And we get a couple of scenes with her, and she
get one scene with her in. It's correct.
One scene and a memory.
That's it. Yeah.
Got Back to the Future, The Saint, Leaving Las Vegas, lots and lots of films. And then that's pretty much it. Then we've got Manuel Garcia Ruffalo, who plays Melvin Lopez, who was in Sicario 2 and The Magnificent Seven. Carl Glussman plays Red Epstein, who is the sonar operator, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Brittney plays Lieutenant Watson, who's been in lots of UK TV. Matt Helm plays Lieutenant Naystrom. Devlin Druid plays Homer Wallace, again, lots of US TV. Maximilian Osinski plays the captain of Eagle, again, a lot of US TV work.
Yeah.
And then Dominic Keating plays the captain of Harry, HMS James, and he has been in quite a few different things, but as a Trekkie, I know him best as Malcolm Reed from Star Trek Enterprise.
That's probably one of his best known roles as well.
Yeah, and then we've got Chet Hanks as Bushnell.
Yeah, nice little family connection there.
Yeah.
You missed the U-boat commander's voice.
Oh, and who plays him?
Thomas Kretschmann. I think I'm probably butchering that. But he's a German actor, and he voices the U-boat crew that you hear over the radio.
Oh yeah, that
later in the movie. Yeah, so he was Hans von Wittland in Stalingrad in 1993.
Oh no way!
Yeah, he was Hauptmann Wilhelm Hosenfeld in The Pianist in 2002, and then he was Hermann Figlin in Downfall in 2004.
Oh wow! Okay.
What a career, and probably.
Well, I do apologise, dear listeners, for missing him off my list.
That's all right. I mean, it's a blink and you'll miss it cameo. I've got to admit.
Oh, I know it is, but it's good though, isn't it? Wow, I didn't realise. I mean, we'll talk about those radio messages later on, but
and he also played
interesting.
Otto Ernst Rehmer in 2008's Valkyrie, so he's got quite the back catalogue there of playing German officers. So I thought it was quite a nice little cameo there. But I like all those. The chatting between the ships. I think that's quite good, isn't it? I do like that.
Yeah, I mean, between Harry and Eagle, and I think all that works really well.
Did you notice the Tom, Dick, and Harry reference?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? You got the Dick, Harry, and then obviously Tom's the captain of the first ship. I love it. It's a great little thing, but it's like if you don't put the dots together, you might miss it. But it's a really nice little thing. So I think it probably segues into production. So it was produced by Sony Pictures Entertainment, and 6 other production companies were involved. But probably the ones that come to mind more are Tom Hanks's own company called Playtone, and Stage 6 Films, which is a Sony subsidiary that specializes in producing and acquiring lower budget features. Tom Hanks wrote the screenplay of this one, and it's based upon C.S. Forester's 1955 novel The Good Shepherd. And Hanks is a big fan of it. I think he's mentioned before, I think he mentioned in a press junket, it's one of his favorite books, if I remember rightly. And it was directed by Aaron Schneider, and he hadn't actually directed a feature film since 2009's Get Low with Robert Duvall in it. But he'd also won an Oscar for his short film Two Soldiers in 2004, which is set, I think, just before and just after Pearl Harbor. So he has got good form, he just hasn't done that much work. And I think he does a very good job of directing this one.
I agree. I think it's really well directed.
Very tight, good vision, good directing overall, I think. Then we had cinematography by Shelley Johnson, whose credits include Captain America, The First Avenger, Jurassic Park 3 and The Expendables 2, so she's no stranger to action.
Well, we can't hold those against her.
Yeah. I mean, Jurassic Park 3 is probably not the best film ever. I mean, Expendables 2 had its moments. I do like Captain America, the first one. I just think with those Marvel films, they don't go as in-depth as they should, but it's another one for another day. Dale Dye, the famous Dale Dye, served as the film's military advisor, and he obviously had worked with Hanks before on Saving Private Ryan, Band of Brothers, The Pacific. They're all Hanks productions, so it's obvious he'd get involved. And it all shines through. I don't think there's anything wrong with the historical accuracy in this one, really. Maybe here and there.
I've not seen anyone really criticize any of the historical elements of it. I mean, I think with a broad brush, it gets things right, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. There's maybe some nitpicky little bits in there, but I thought it was quite good overall. The movie itself was filmed in 2018, and elements that were filmed at sea, which I thought was a very nice touch, a bit like The Cruel Sea, they were shot aboard HMCS Montreal of the Royal Canadian Navy, and the last seaworthy flower-cast corvette HMCS Sackville was used as the model for HMCS Dodge, the call sign Dickie in the film. So it's really nice they took the 3D scans of that flower class and then put it in the movie. So it not only it's not just it's not just a from the ground.
It looks
model.
so good though. I mean, we'll talk about that more later on, but yeah,
seeing them smash into the waves and stuff is beautiful. And then the production team also took 3D scans of the Fletcher class destroyer USS Kidd, which was used as the model for Greyhound in March 2018. And the movie was filmed on a pretty modest budget of $50 million. And it was originally slated for a 2019 release, but then was pushed back to early 2020. And as we all know, what happened in 2020? We had a huge pandemic and the movie got pushed back and pushed back again, missed its theatrical window. And it looked like the movie, what was going to happen with Greyhound? Were they going to wait, maybe release it at Christmas time? No one really knew. And this is where Apple TV get involved. So they were launching their streaming service. I think it came out in the summer of 2020. And I think they had their flagship shows were like...
There weren't many.
Ted Lasso, I think, and they had like a cartoon as well. And then, Ted Lasso did well. It's a good series. But they stepped in and they saved Greyhound's bacon, really. And they reportedly paid $70 million for the streaming rights to the movie. So I'm sure Sony were very happy to make back their money. And the film was reported by Apple to have been, at the time of the opening, the biggest weekend for any show on its platform at the time of release. And an Apple representative told Deadline, the film turned in a viewing audience commensurate with a summer theatrical box office hit. Now, they don't give out the numbers, streaming services famously, but, I assume it's been a hit. And at the time of recording, it was reported in May that a sequel is in development by Apple Studios and part of a bigger deal with Playtone.
I really, really, really hope they're going to adapt the ship.
I hope so. I hope we get like a C.S. Forrester follow-up.
That'd be great.
Maybe
Royal
Hanks
Navy
might
focused.
Direct. That could be interesting. Who would play the crew? That'd be really interesting, wouldn't it? You could do a whole episode on that.
You get Stephen Graham back doing an English accent.
That'd be so funny. That American guy's my brother. To be fair, though, I think Graham's Brooklyn accent is pretty good, actually.
Yeah, he does nail it. I mean, he's really solid in this.
He's great at it. He's good in everything.
He doesn't have a lot in there, really. He's in the CIC. There's a few bits where they're in the wardroom, a couple of chats on the bridge. And whenever he does pop up, it moves things forward a bit, doesn't it?
You get
gives
the
a little
feel
bit
like
of progression to the characters.
Yeah, it's nice. And he respects Krause a lot, you can tell, or is sympathetic to what he's doing. That they play off each other well. Never thought I'd see Hanks and Graham on screen together, but it's nice. And then we have I say retro review, but it's only 2 years old this week. So Hollywood Reporter's Ian Freer gave the film 3 stars, and he concluded his review by saying, "A serious, well-intentioned slice of World War II naval history, full of compelling detail and good action, but lacking the dimensions and dynamics to make you truly feel it."
I don't know. I know you've got a couple of things that you've noticed about the film, and there's a couple of things that don't quite work for you. But for me, I think it works phenomenally well. I think as a tight, really purposed movie, I think it comes across as really competent. and it works.
Yeah, I think it's good. I don't have any real qualms.
I really
with
like this film. I know some people. It's often described as like naval fury, as like some kind of some sort of
that's
diss
putting
against
it down. Yeah,
film. Yeah, and I don't agree. Like I like Fury. I think Fury is a beautifully
Fury
shot
too.
film. There's elements of it
issue.
that I have problems with, but I can't say the same about this one. I think it works.
Yeah, I do as well. There's things I want to say, but I'll say my final thoughts because it make more sense. But we asked you again, fair listeners, what you think with our One Road review. And we had another bumper crop. I think we had like 40 or 50 responses. I mean, thanks very much.
But we're going to read 5.
Yeah, 4 I think I've got here. But thanks again, because we love hearing what you guys think. And it's always nice to include your thoughts. So Ian McClellan says flounder. Quite like that. Dan Steele says atmospheric. I agree with that one, Dan.
Yeah.
Seri Thomas says slippers. And I think 3 or 4 other people commented up the same thing.
I saw quite a few slippers. Yeah.
Yeah, the symbolism of those slippers is nice. I do like that. And Danny C finally, and I think it is a bit of an elephant in the room. We'll have to address it. He says paywall.
Yeah, I mean, that's the nature of it. We've got so many streaming services now, and they're all vying for good content. And it just so happens that Apple was at the time a service that not many people took up instantly.
No, and I think it'll think it with Masters of the Air. People will be getting that trial.
Oh, I think so. Yeah,
or something.
That'd be a big draw. I mean, this was a big draw. I think a lot of people. I know I got a trial when it first came out simply to watch this, and I think
I'm lucky because Katie's got Apple TV, so I was able to watch it again. And I think you get another trial to watch it. That's the only issue, isn't it?
It's time for Alley Tally on Fighting on Film.
If you've listened to the Enemy Below episodes, then you'll know that me and Matt are no naval experts at all.
Absolutely not. No.
Yeah, so someone could walk past in a feather boa, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's very accurate." Like, I wouldn't know. But as I said, I like these kind of movies because I like seeing the US Navy like deck jackets and
deck jackets.
Oh, you want one, don't you? Like, I know that James Holland's probably be wearing his. We have race vest, and I'm like, oh, he looks good on anyone. Them jackets.
It does. I'm a sucker for a good deck jacket or any kind of jacket, really. But they do look so good.
They're very cool, aren't they? Yeah.
There's a couple of variations in this as well. But yeah, when it comes to Alley Tally this week, the uniforms to me, again, not naval experts, not uniform experts of US Navy of the 40s, that's for sure. But I feel like the wardrobe department got it right. They kind of stressed all the uniforms. They look worn, they look lived in. There's a variation. Not everyone's uniform, and it's because working on a ship is hard, especially
exactly.
In, the North Atlantic.
Guys are wearing stuff that's got oil covered in it if they come up from the engine room, things like that. It's really nice. And then when everyone goes into battle stations, you've got the cook character. When Cleveland comes off of cook duty and starts helping the AA gun load up, he's just wearing his M1 helmet and a life vest. I just love things
over
like that.
His whites,
exactly, because it's everything on a ship so frenetic and they never get to rest properly. So I like that sort of. It's really frantic and people just putting on their helmets and getting ready. I don't think Tom Hanks doesn't even put on his like leather captain's coat thing until about halfway through. And that's nice. There's nice little things. Obviously, we've got to mention the monogram slippers because they're really nice. I like the symbolism of when he finally, I mean, spoiler alert if you've not seen the movie, but halfway through he takes his boots off and his feet are absolutely they're bloody.
He's been stood for like 3 watches at that point, hasn't he?
And I assumed it's because he hadn't broken his boots in either because he was new.
He is. Yeah, I agree. I think you're right there. So it shows you the rawness of his feet match the rawness of his experience. Yeah, like I know it's a tenuous thing. I did A-level film. That's massively A-level film. You stick that in an essay, you're going to get a B. But it makes sense. And then he gets his monogram slippers, puts them on. He feels the comfort. Reminds him of home. It's really nice. I like the symbolism there. Well, they're introduced with his love interest, Elisabeth Shue's character.
Yeah.
And they become you don't realize it, but they become like Chekhov's slippers, don't they?
They
Where
do a bit, yeah.
you get like a Christmas gift, they exchange, and then they come in handy.
No, they do. They really.
And
It's nice.
I love all those shots. I know we're getting a little bit off topic,
It's
but
fine.
I love all those shots of the blood on the floor where
It's
he's
good, isn't it?
pacing. And when
Yeah.
he takes them off, they're covered in blood in his cabin.
Mm.
The attention to detail in small things in this film is actually really good. And I've watched it a number of times now, and you do pick up other things that you missed the first time around.
I like how it's not really alley-tally, but it makes sense sort of to talking about the slippers. I like how colourful that sequence is when they're chatting in that hotel lobby.
Yeah, the contrast is massive, isn't it?
Really nice. And it's almost, because America obviously isn't as touched by the conflict on the home front, like there's no bombings and things like that of any real merit. So America at that time was quite vibrant, and we think of like the neon lights and things like that. So I like that. It's a nice little contrast, because the rest of the film is very dark and very, you get the red lighting of the action stations. It's a very saturated color palette, but that bit really stands out. I like it.
It is, but it works really well, doesn't it? I mean, comparing it to Fury, you get that color palette is fairly similar. It's quite matte and saturated, and
has very like war movie type feel. Combat.
It is,
feel.
especially since Saving Private Ryan, that is the kind of color palette that we've got.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
In modern war movies, a lot of them, but I think it works especially well in the North Atlantic because it is grey.
Yeah, massively.
It works, it fits. I'm going to talk more about that later on. But in terms of other alley kit, like 5-inch guns, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks good. That the sequences where the firing as the guns bear, and they're blasting away at that surfaced U-boat. It's just good, it looks incredible good.
And the deafening
really
sound, good. The sound design. I mean, the sound design was nominated for an Oscar.
I believe so. Yeah,
it didn't win, unfortunately, but we were happy because the more movies that get Oscar nominations in the war movie genre, fantastic. Keeps the genre alive. So the sound like deafening in those sections, and the men moaning about, I can't depress the gun far enough to shoot at the U-boat and things like that, and you get them just blazing away with their AA pom-pom guns. I'm just like, oh my god, like crazy.
Yeah, 40 millimeter Bofors, 20 millimeter Orlikans, and the depth charges, really like those.
You get I think I mentioned it in the Enemy Below episode, but you get the guys with the big radio operator helmets as well.
Oh yeah,
love them.
That's how well we know naval kit. the big radio operator helmets.
They look like ones out of Star Wars or whatever it was called. The Mel Brooks Star Wars ripoff. Yeah, they look like the guys out of that. I think me and Matt both have it on the list actually, and it was really nice to see it. You get to see US air cover, and then you see RAF air cover at the end. Like that's so
Catalina,
niche. Yeah. Like I don't think we've ever. Well, it's probably the first time we've had a convoy run movie in modern era.
Oh,
I don't think we've had one since like the 50s. Probably not. Yeah. But no, maybe. Yeah, because even the Enemy Below is not a convoy movie, is it?
No.
No.
U-571. Is there a convoy in that? I think there's just a U-boat scene, isn't there?
The U-boat captain voice played the captain of that U-boat.
Oh God, did he? Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I haven't watched all the new Das Boot yet.
No, I haven't either.
There might be some convoy stuff in that, but I know
more than likely. But it was seeing that bombing run at the end from the Catalina. Oh, it's great. Yeah, it reminded me of the flying boat scenes from Yangtze incident.
Oh yeah,
That reminded me of that a bit.
I mean, do love a bit of flying boat action on the pod, gotta be honest.
But when are you ever going to see like that replicated again in a movie? Probably chances are very slim.
I mean, they didn't need to do it, but they did it, and I appreciate it.
Well, Tom was banking on it, wasn't he? He didn't have much left to fight back with, because unless they were going to ram it, which I thought we didn't get, out of the top ways of killing a U-boat, ramming's the only one he didn't do, I think.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, maybe they're saving the ramming for the sequel.
Maybe, let's hope so.
You got to save the ramming for the sequel. You can't put it in yet, Tom.
I thought that was Tom. I thought Tom went into generic producer voice whenever he puts on his producer hat.
One of the Sony guys. You gotta keep them waiting for that Ram sequence. The guys love it. But apart from that, because it's so locked into the ships, there isn't much you can really like pick out.
Well, the ships are incredible. I mean, that last shot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about this in a minute, but the ships are incredible. They look brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the CGI holds up really well.
I think it does.
It might date with time as CGI does.
There's there's bits here and there that I think don't look good anyway.
Yes, there are a few bits that are really flat and looks like they haven't put the same level of rendering into them.
Yeah, that's it. So like whenever you get sorry to interrupt, but I've got to say it. You know when you get secret close-ups of U-boat deck crews or crews on the deck of the U-boat firing the guns.
Yeah,
they look like they're out of a PlayStation 1 cutscene because they don't move properly. And whenever you get like a bit where you can see chaps like on ships, they're not animated properly. Like, they only got like 2 or 3 frames of animation, so they move like robots. Like Chuck E. Cheese animatronics. They move really weird. That's the only bit I found really janky. But apart from that,
there is a little bit of janky CGI in places. But then there's other bits that are just phenomenal. I mean, you can see where they've put all the money into those certain scenes.
Seeing the Corvette smash into waves, as I said before, like, that's beautiful.
I mean, they probably should have put a little bit more effort into those U-boat crew members.
Little bit.
I know it was a distant shot, but they probably should have done
for maybe like 5 seconds or so. Yeah. It's not that bad. Because this is the thing I said to you off mic. I said when you overanalyze sequences, you notice that sort of thing. But when you're watching it on the big telly, you don't really notice.
I'll say it now. I was going to say it later on, but I would have really loved to have seen this in cinema.
I would have too.
I mean, some of those sequences would have really been great to see on a big screen.
Especially with the sound as well. Like, it would have really... Yeah, absolutely. It's a shame.
The sound on the film is incredible. I mean, it completely justifies that nomination.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it does. But maybe if we venture into sort of favourite scene category, maybe we should jump to it.
Hello there. Sorry to interrupt. I wanted to let you know that you can now join our supporting cast over on Patreon. As thanks for your support, you'll be able to help us pick films, submit questions for guests, have first pick on brand new and exclusive merch, and much more. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show. So, Rob, what's your favourite scene this week?
Really got to admit, and this is something that maybe I was going to say in final thoughts, but I say it now, because the movie is A to B. There's no C plot. There's no, will the engine room do up the bolt in time so the ship doesn't sink? There's nothing like that at all.
No,
it's literally just Tom Hanks fighting U-boats till the end. There's nothing more.
There isn't even any like jeopardy with when the U-boat does get a deck gun hit on the
it
ship.
Just happens.
I mean, I know it kills Cleveland.
Yeah.
But there's no like, are we going to get this fire put out? Or
exactly.
There's a little bit of jeopardy with like we're running out of depth charges. And there's lots of jeopardy elsewhere. With with other elements of the film we'll talk about in a moment.
That convoy is like fighting for its life.
Like, I mean that's enough jeopardy. Like, do we need more jeopardy?
Yeah, exactly. Christ, like they've already lost a fucking fuel tanker. Like, I can imagine somewhere like someone's running into the cabinet war rooms, be like, "Sir, the convoy's lost a tanker," and she's like, "We'll have to stop Operation Husky for 4 weeks. God damn it."
Turn the heating off.
Turn the heating down. So you know what I mean by that. So I found it really difficult to pinpoint a scene because it's not really scenes. I know it's not a gimmick, like there's no single shot, but it sort of feels like that in the way that it's done.
Well, it's shot over like 4 watches.
Yeah, and it's like blocked off.
One after another, yeah. So
they're extended sequences, and I found it hard to pinpoint. But there is one bit I really, really like. So going back to the CGI bit.
Is it the hotel sequence?
Could you imagine that? I like the train ticket you showed. That was really cool. A bit of Americana. No.
I was like, I hope you can get a refund on that.
Yeah. No, I like the sense of vastness the film shows and the sense of scale. So there's some lovely aerial shots where you see the vastness of the ocean and the relative size of that convoy, and showing how vulnerable they are, really, because it's the sea. You're on the top of it, they're on the bottom. That's you're alone in the vastness of the ocean. It's amazing to see it. But there's one bit that I really, really liked. And so Greyhound is blasting away at a surface U-boat at night. And Hanks Krause is directing the fire. And one of the crew off camera warns of a merchant ship dead ahead. And Greyhound, Hanks is like, quick, turn the ship. I forget what he says.
Like hard to port or something.
Hard to port, hard to starboard, something like that. Navy speak. So he says that. And you get the scale of the merchant ships compared to this little Fletcher-class corvette.
Yeah.
And it's only for a split second Tom Hanks looks up in awe at the size of this ship. And it just hit home to me how small the ships were.
Yeah, it's
defending the big ships.
It's instant scale, isn't it? It's
It's
immediate.
It's fabulous. And and they've also worried they're going to hit it, and you get these little sparks come off the side where Keeling does hit the ship. It's just it's maybe on screen for maybe 10, 15 seconds. But I really enjoyed it. And then I thought deeper about it after. And I think it's on one level, it's showing the scale of the job at hand to Hanks. Like it's not only like what they're doing, but it's like, look how big of a ship we're going to lose if I don't do my job properly. And I think,
well, especially at the end where it's one of those ships is shown as like a troop ship.
Yeah, exactly.
The sides are lined with men.
That hits really hard at the end. You see just how many people could potentially drown, or die if Hanks doesn't do his job properly. And I really, and it's great effect work anyway. But I thought that was really powerful, that little sequence. It was really nice.
I agree. And one of my favorite parts of the film is around that sequence as well, where you mentioned it, where the camera pulls out into this fantastic aerial shot and it pulls back and back. You see all of it's when the U-boat pack is attacking on multiple fronts, and you see
that's it.
You see lots of the fire from all the different frigates and destroyers and corvettes defending the convoy. And it pulls up through the cloud, and then you see the light flashing on the cloud from the gun flashes, and then it pulls up further, and then you get just this layer of Aurora Borealis, and it's the way it juxtaposes with the chaos on the surface of the sea, with the calm of the aurora. It's beautiful. It's really beautifully done.
Yeah, it's nice. You don't get that in the Cruel Sea as much because they're restricted.
They just couldn't do that in 1950s.
No, exactly. But it's really powerful, I think, at times in the movie. And it's a little bit Commando-esque, Tom Hanks killing 4 U-boats in so many different ways at times. But it is a good movie.
Is it 4?
I think it's 4 in the end. Yeah. There's that chat with Diamond at the end.
Yeah, of course. Well, the Catalina got 1, so.
Oh, of course it did, yeah.
So he's taking credit. Anyway. I mean, to be fair, they were marking it with their guns, so it's a shared kill. Yeah. Coming off that Cruel Sea reference, I think for me, my favourite scene in the film is where the tanker is destroyed, and Krause is trying to decide whether to heave to and pick up survivors, or to go and aid. There's a radio message that comes in and says there's a contact at the rear of the convoy, and we think the U-boats are going to strike there next. And you can see him pause, and he's trying to think, should I heave to, or should I go and protect the rear of the convoy? And he hears the sound of the explosions on the tanker, and screams, and someone says there's men in the water, and he heaves to, and he makes that choice. And it's kind of almost kind of mirrors the Cruel Sea sequence where Jack Hawkins has to make a decision about whether to depth charge whether those guys are still in the water. It's
nowhere near as good as that Cruel Sea sequence.
No, it's not.
I must say that now.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's not. But it's good.
It's on a par. It's getting there. Yeah,
I think it's admirable to compare this movie to The Cruel Sea, which is.
Well, I think so. Yeah,
I think, but for you and I, it's probably the ultimate, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. Well, of course. Yeah, it's like in probably my top 3 war films all time.
And then just 4 survivors are pulled from the water, and he has to process the fact that he's probably made a mistake. He's probably let another ship get attacked and probably damaged or sunk, just to save those 4 men. And it's needs of the many versus
and
needs
that's
of the few.
thing. It's the whole you're trying to protect ships, but then really you're protecting the men on the ships as well. Like it's the whole, the land combat is a bit different. Like it's men against men in many ways, unless you're in a tank. But like when you're on a vehicle, sometimes the human element is taken away because you think, oh, I'm just shooting at another vehicle. It's that whole mental chess that you see. It's very good.
Yeah. But I think Hanks brings that. He portrays the agony of that dilemma really well.
Yeah, he's just good. Tom Hanks is just good when he
it's Tom Hanks.
It's Tom Hanks. He's one of the greats who'll go down as that. But yeah, I think it's good. He does it justice. He adds the right level of weight, I think.
I mean, throughout the film, I love how Hanks crafts the character and builds him. There's little bits where, the interactions with the crew, and sometimes it's just glances where he realizes that his yeoman is freezing outside because he's preoccupied and staring through like his binoculars. He turns around to the messenger and he realizes he's like stood there shivering, and he goes inside because he knows the messenger will follow him.
Yeah,
and it's just really small little things like that.
Offering the man next to him a coffee when he doesn't have to.
Yeah,
things like that. It shows he cares, which I really like. He's not a young buck trying to prove himself. He's this. What I assume he was a reservist, wasn't he? I think is what they say. Yeah. So he's been on ships before. He knows the crack, but he might not know how it is under fire. So I like him the way he works his characterization, even though you don't get very much of it. He works with what he has,
and you can see from the way the crew reacts throughout the film to him. They're unsure at the beginning, and then it slowly builds, and you can see that by the end of the film, they trust him and know that he's gonna do the right thing, because there's a bit where one of his officers says they're gonna flank left, and he orders them to go right, and they all kind of pause and look, and they're like, well, that's not what's going to happen, because it's not obvious to them that he's thinking of they're going to try something else, or there's lots of little moments like that where, granted, there's not a lot of dialogue to push this forward, but there's parts in the film where that character does grow, and it's subtle. And for a film that's completely action and it's tension and it's ramped, it does those little subtleties quite well in places, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the final thoughts as well. The proceduralness of a lot of the dialogue was lost on me a lot of the time, because I was like, I get what you're talking about, but do we need this much? Can you just simplify it a little bit for people?
Yeah.
See what I mean?
I like that. I like some of it. I like how they explain that the other escorts are running out of fuel. I like how they explain the way sonar works.
That was good.
Subtly.
Must admit. Yeah,
I like how
you can't have a convoy film without explaining how sonar works. No, it's not.
Kind
the
of
rules
defeats the object, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's no ping. Though, is there?
And I also like the fact that they explain the depth charges. So they're running out of depth charges, and that adds a little bit more tension. So he's down to 6 charges at the end of the film, and the depth charge officer says, well, we can't do full patterns. Should we just fire one at a time? And Hanks is like, yes, that will probably be the best course of action, because we have 6 left. So there's times when I think that procedural dialogue works and it helps, but there's other bits where they include the acronyms of the Admiralty and
little bits
high frequency radio chatter and stuff, and it kind of you spend too much time thinking, what does that
what's that mean?
Yeah.
It's not a huge thing. It didn't draw me out so much that I found I couldn't keep up with what was happening. I just thought sometimes I was like, okay, there's another way of saying this, almost.
Yeah, no, I agree there. But if we're in final thoughts, I mean, for me, I love the introduction with the Churchill and Roosevelt sound bites.
That's really good. Yeah, that is good.
Set the scene really tightly, and then you're thrown straight into the convoy, which is another thing. You don't see land.
No, you don't.
The only time you see land is in that scene with Elisabeth Shue. And then it's just a room. So there's no landscape shots or establishing stuff.
Yeah.
It's just
Agreed.
You're straight into the convoy. And then what I think is really interesting about the film is they don't get to go into Liverpool,
No.
much to Hanks's, disappointment. He's diverted to Derry to refit and rearm.
Yeah.
So you don't get that
Touching land almost.
You don't get the climactic
We're home
resolution of them sailing into Liverpool, which would have been really cool actually. But
good.
I can imagine the CGI
the
budget would have been stretched a bit there.
Maybe the sequel will be them coming out of Liverpool, perhaps. Maybe.
But we do get that really nice shot of the 3 surviving escort vessels.
It's nice.
Powering through the waves, and it looks incredible. It looks great.
I also like the chat he has with Diamond at the end.
Yes. Yeah.
That subtly sets up a sequel where it's like, how many U-boats did you get? He goes 4, and then the Diamond goes, well, let's hope next time's a bit easier, eh? I really like that. It's just very like understated Navy captain talking to him, like it. In terms of issues for me though, because there are a couple. The bit with the German U-boat captain over the radio howling. Obviously you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't break radio silence like that. But I felt it was a little bit pantomime villainy, a little bit.
It is. I mean,
the wolf is hungry.
That bit was bad. I mean, some of the dialogue could have been a little bit better. I think tighter there. It's based. I haven't read the book. I need to read the book actually. But the taunts are based on a brief couple of lines in the book where it talks. I think there's a conversation with one of the other escorts, and it says, overnight we've had some radio chatter and 1 or 2 insults from one of the U-boats, an English speaker on one of the U-boats, and I think that's where it comes from.
Right.
So I don't think it happened in real life, but it's from Forrester's book.
It sounds like it would.
Hanks has taken it and used a bit of artistic license to put the antagonist up front and in the film. So one thing before we move on, I think the film does incredibly well. I think the soundtrack creates such a atmosphere when they introduce those U-boats. The noise and the sound of the waves and the music around that is so eerie. It's disturbing. It's coming up out of the waves, and you see the conning tower break above the surface.
They're like sharks,
get that whine.
They feel like sharks coming up. Yeah, I like that.
I think that is done really, really well. But I agree. I think although it's artistic license and there's an element of it from the book,
I still think hokey.
Yeah, it could have been done a little bit better, I think.
Yeah, it could have been.
Or done a little bit less. If they'd done it once, but they keep doing it.
There's another reason I thought they might have done it. Got in my notes. I was like, I think it might be maybe to humanize them a little bit. Maybe.
Yeah.
For the audience, but it's done in a bit of a roundabout way. Like do you know what I mean by that?
I do. If you compare it to things like, Enemy Below, where you get almost a 50-50 portrayal of ship and submarine. You don't get anything like that in this film.
No, you don't. It's just
those little radio interactions are the only look at the crew that you get.
My closing, I've written a bit of a closing statement here, which is I just got writing. So I wrote not as in depth in terms of characterization as the Crawl Sea or even The Enemy Below, but a decent effort by Hanks and the team. I was saying to Matt that this is to naval films what Fury was to land-based war films in terms of its budget. It's a mid-budget war film that isn't trying to tell a story of one group of soldiers winning the war or using a gimmick like being filmed in one continuous shot. It's a solid, no-frills naval warfare film. If it had come out in the mid-50s, it would fit right in with the genre. And the genre also needs more films like this going forward.
I completely agree. I mean, it's up there with, the classic ship versus sub movies, isn't it? Crawl Sea, Dasboo, Bedford Incident, Enemy Below.
Yeah.
You can compare it to all of those, and it comes off favorably.
I think it does, yeah.
Which, is one thing to say. I think the mise en scène is really good. I think the way that they captured the movement of the ship at sea, it was filmed on gimbals, apparently, to recreate the movement of the sea. I like the depths of the attention to detail that they've gone to. So one of the articles I was reading talked about how they recreated the the Bofors guns with the correct rate of fire on like a pneumatic.
Oh wow!
So they've got the recoil right on a pneumatic system. I just love the way that the film gets across the atmosphere. So when the red light comes down because the night running, it just feels very atmospheric. And then you can feel that biting cold. Yeah,
I got to admit, it does a good job of making the cold feel cold.
Yeah, because it's the North Atlantic, so you can feel that wind ripping through the bridge.
And spray hitting people.
There's water leaking through the bridge roof. The portholes at the front of the bridge have frozen over at one point. He talks about, you need to pour some warm salt water on that and get the windscreen wipers going again. And then you've got the claustrophobicness of the CNC, the sonar room as well, where it feels compact and tight because you only see like 3 rooms of the ship, like the wardroom,
see many.
the wardroom, the bridge, and the CNC. Sorry, the CIC. And despite that, you feel like you've seen the ship, you know what's going on.
Yeah,
because it's a classic filmed on the bridge.
Yeah, definitely
naval war movie, isn't it? Compares really favorably with the classics. And as I said at the beginning of the film, I noticed things as I rewatched. So there is a little bit of depth to it, whereas it can seem like just a straightforward hour-and-a-half movie with a very focused plot. But there is nuances, there is subtlety in there as well with the characterizations we talked about. And I think it just stands up as a really good war movie.
I think it's good. It's if you can find it and watch it, I think it is worth it.
But I agree completely with your points.
Yeah, it's just I thought that it was interesting just to mention Fury there because this was shot for less money than Fury was. So Fury's got like an 80 million budget or 60 million. This was made for 50. So just to see what you can do on a budget like this was very interesting, And then we get something like 1917 and we get something like Dunkirk and their budgets are in the hundreds of millions. You don't have to be so epic and grand with your war film.
No.
You can tell a small story. As we've seen through the genre through the years, there are so many stories to be told and so many different ways to tell them. You don't have to go bombastic. You don't have to have gimmicks.
And I'd welcome more small.
Yeah, so would I. Which is why
small stories.
Why I'm hoping that a sequel would do the exact same, maybe just on a different ship, the Med or something. And it's another way of getting people into C.S. Forrester's work because he's one of the greats. And I know from this movie that Greyhound got an audio book adaptation that came out in 2020. And I know it was reprinted as well because you couldn't get copies for a while, or I found it hard to get one. Then they re-released it for the movie. So that's a good thing as well.
And how often do you see convoy movies?
Exactly.
We say it all the time, but how often do you see Battle of the Atlantic films?
Yeah.
You really need a t-shirt with how often do you see written on, that.
And I think we have wasted a thing where they say people don't talk about the Battle of the Atlantic as much as they should because of how important it was.
Oh yeah, pivotal. Yeah.
And it's nice that Tom Hanks made a passion project that wasn't clearly like a vanity project. He clearly cared a lot about what he was writing, and the overall payoff worked really well for me. So there we go. That was Greyhound. Thanks again to our patrons for picking this one for us. There'll be another Patreon pick coming up in July. Just keep your eyes peeled for that one on the Patreon. And as always, thanks for listening. You can find the entire back catalogue of the show on fightingonfilm.com. Maybe you'll have a FOF binge. Who knows? We'll catch you next week, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.